Welcome back. I'm John Stark, MacTheMovieGuy.com. I'm a blind film critic, and this is ISS. This is a review of that film that really nobody saw. I saw it. It's got Ariana DeBose, Chris Messina, so John Gallagher Jr. They're in space. There's some Russian actors in this too. There are really only 6 people in the cast. That's pretty amazing. So it's one of those like confined spaces type drama thrillers. So let's talk about it. But first, before you head into space, make sure you click subscribe, because that'll take me with you into space, and we can talk about movies in space that have audio description. This is audio description done by the team at Deluxe. I think it was Emily Nixon or something like that, and Jedediah Barton. I wasn't as familiar with the female voice as I was with the male voice. So, but mostly it's the female voice that narrates the actual content. They just use the other to dub the Russian voices later in the film. So audio description wise, it's not exciting, but it's fine. I mean, the content of the audio description is fine. I just she could read bedtime stories. I'd be fine, you know. I kind of wanted more. The film is sort of a thriller. It doesn't feel very suspenseful, though. It just kind of feels... But then again, the film also oddly has pacing issues for a film that's barely over 90 minutes. So it has a hard time filling its own runtime with enough stuff to kind of keep it going. It's not a bad film. It just has some pacing issues, which can happen in a film that it has a limited location and a small cast. So when we open up the film, due to budgetary reasons, I'm sure, we're seeing Ariana DeBose and John Gallagher Jr. have just kind of launched, and they're headed there to the ISS in their little spacecraft, and they're hoping to dock soon, and they're kind of just giving some exposition about their past, and Gallagher's talking about his kids, and we're sort of learning more about people like that. And then they dock, and we meet the other American that's there, Chris Messina, along with the Russian crew. And this is at a time when, you know, everybody's cool. Everybody's copacetic up there in the ISS. It's a shared space. They all work on stuff together. We find out actually that Chris Messina and the female Russian astronaut, Nika, are sort of kind of a thing. So there's that. And then the other two just kind of work their way in and become a part of this new family. And then the world goes to shit. And there's some sort of like massive nuclear holocaust that is so bad it's visible from space. Like there are scenes where they look at Earth, and it's like the way it's described, you're just like, how on earth could it possibly be? Could we have possibly launched that many nuclear weapons to, like, I mean, that's not just a war between US and Russia. That's everybody. Everybody hit go. Everybody just hit the green button. There's nothing really to return to. I don't know. You know, it's just, they're looking at the planet and it doesn't look great from space. And for them to be able to see that is says a lot. I don't think they'd be able to see one nuke. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think they'd be... I don't think that's a thing. Plus, you'd have to be on the right side of the planet at the time because you can't necessarily see the whole planet. So you'd have to be on looking at the place where it actually... Anyway, there's like a whole thing here. So it was a little bit oversold me on it. I was like, okay, wow. Were we attacked by aliens from Independence Day? Like, what happened here? But it kind of... And it, like, the audio description leans into it by using, you know, big words. You know, like really destructive words. Like, I think hellscape was used. Just words that really just reinforce how terrible it looks like down there. Anyway, so up in space, then everybody gets worried, and both the Americans and the Russians get directives to take the ISS by any means necessary, because God knows when we're in the middle of a nuclear holocaust, we got to make sure that this floating piece of shit in space that has no tactical advantage is owned by one of the countries. It doesn't have anything. It doesn't have weapons. It doesn't have... They can't do anything. Why was this a priority for anybody to be like, we need to make sure we get to the team on the ISS to let them know? I'm surprised we didn't forget about them. That should be the plot of the movie. Be like, I don't know, we can't reach Earth. What's going on down there? And the madness out of that situation, you didn't really need to tell them to do anything. Just them being able to see what this bullshit was going on down there below and wondering what happened, and then creating sort of this, like, we're in space and space insanity sets in or whatever, would have been interesting in itself. The fact that they couldn't communicate with Earth, the fact that you got this guy who's got a family down there. Once you establish all that stuff, that's a movie in and of itself. You don't need the other stuff. But we have it anyway. So you have the debates about, like, ooh, do we do it? Do we take it or not? And you don't really know, are the Russians going to try to take it? I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. And then there's this thing with, like, an antenna, and Christmasine has to go outside. And the film just kind of just moves in a direction where you think it's going to go from that point. Obviously with Ariana DeBose being sort of the central lead to the film, because that's what it feels like. It feels like she's being set up as the lead, even in a small cast of 6 people. So yeah, it just kind of predictably goes where it wants to go. Until it doesn't. There's a scene in here where I gotta say, I'm not gonna spoil it, but there's a scene in here that just... we lost a grade. I'm just gonna say we lost a letter grade, because it didn't make any sense. It just felt like it was there to, like, surprise people, like, what? I'm back. Like, what? Without really any context given, or it was so concerned with surprising you that it didn't actually ask itself, did we make this make sense? How could this have happened? And it doesn't invest enough in the scene to even answer that question after the fact. It just kind of has a moment. And you're like, okay, that was dumb. Thanks for that. I'm sure the actor involved was probably like, this is dumb. I don't understand this. I should have read my script before I said yes to this project. Maybe there's a scene that was cut. I don't know. But the film already, like I said, kind of has pacing issues. It kind of just, it doesn't hold the tension. It needs to hold that tension. We made so many great submarine movies in, like, the 90s. It was all about that Cold War, coming out of the Cold War tension. We made all these great submarine dramas like Hunt for Red October and Crimson Tide. Even the horror movie Below. I really enjoyed that film. It's a little underrated gem. But they kind of all explored U-571. You know, everybody was exploring submarines, and we tried that. And we've been in space. This isn't the first space movie. So do something interesting with it, you know, try, make this movie happen. I think the film poses interesting questions, and it has interesting characters. Nika becomes an interesting character because, again, whose side is she on? Because she's with she's basically dating an American. So is she reliably with the Russians or is she with the Americans? Who can trust her? You know, where does she go? They don't really explore that enough. They just kind of, anything that's interesting, they don't know if they should explore it. And then they kind of spend a lot of time staring at things that aren't important. It introduces some cool ideas, but then at the same time, doesn't do anything with them. Like, there's one time, sort of towards the beginning of the film, where I didn't even get why they did it. And it's possible, I'm assuming the audio description got it right. So there's a scene where, I think it was Nikolai, he's with Ariana Grande and the actor playing Nikolai, and they're doing this experiment with mice, and she puts the mice in there and he talks to her about the experiment or whatever, and she walks away from it. And he opens up her container after she's gone, and they're like, the mice are floating, and it sort of shows the juxtaposition of him reaching and taking the mice in and out. But then, like, on the footage, it doesn't show anything. Like, it shows the container empty, and I'm like, is this like some sort of like weird space thing where there really aren't any mice floating in there? Or are these like ghost mice? Like, what's happening here? It doesn't really do anything with that. Like, it introduces this thing, but it doesn't really go anywhere with it. It's just like, this is a thing that we do. And so I didn't really understand what it was that they were going for here. It was just something that they just put in there that they could have gone somewhere with and done something with and made sense, but they didn't. It just doesn't really do anything. We don't really come back to it. I mean, we sort of come back to the mice, but not in any sort of like cool way with any repercussions or anything. So very odd choices. I think the audio description is well written. I needed a narrator here that was going to make this feel suspenseful instead of flat. I would pick her voice for dramas. You know, there are plenty of dramas where I think the voice would be fine, because, you know, you're just sort of narrating Nomadland. You know, great, perfect. That film just is what it is. It's just presenting itself. It doesn't really have a lot of rise and fall to it. It just is. And that's kind of what her voice feels like. It just is. But for a film like this that tries to have rises and falls, you need a narrator that goes with the tension, so to speak. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to give ISS a B-. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the other side.